Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe. Entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
Welcome to episode 235 of the Industry Angel. Great to be back with you. Thanks so much for listening of late. I've been watching the download numbers rise, so really appreciate that. But it's been a while since we've had a chat. So much going on. What we do have in the mix is an event, a live event here in South Shields. And we have called it Microbiz Unite because I really feel that we needed an event to get us together, to get us to collaborate, to be inspired, to meet new people, and really put a bit of energy back into business. So I feel like we've been a bit flat of late. You know, COVID happened, and then, I don't know, it just seemed to be people kind of shutting up shop a little bit. There's a lot of economic uncertainty. So we're back. I want to get you together. It's November 8th. If you look at the Far North website, so far-north.co.uk/microbusiness, there's a space there for you to jump on Eventbrite and book a ticket. You can also book an exhibition stand as well. We've kept the pricing super low because we want bums on seats. We've got some fantastic speakers on the day. We've got my friend Adam Corbley, who was an apprentice finalist. We've got our very own Alfie Joey from up here in the northeast of the UK. We've got panels, we've got interviews, we've got workshops, awards. If you are based in the Northeast, be sure to check the awards out as well. You might want to put your cap in the ring. So I'd love you to get involved. I'd love to see you as well if you fancy traveling. We do have some people traveling up for it. It's going to be a great event. So today then, we've got a very different interview for you again today. You know what we're like. We always like to throw you something different to think about. So I hope you will enjoy today's guest. Budding entrepreneur, eloquent linguist, an ever-inquisitive spiritualist. He is continuously developing tarot reader and astrologer with a mission to clarify the languages of the universe in his business practice, providing transformative answers to the questions of the subconscious for clients around the world. Welcome to the Industry Angel, Marius Capra.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Mate, you could not have given me a harder bio, man.
I had to be on brand, as a linguistics graduate, it has to have, the big words and the pompousness and the, seance-y vibes. So it's all on brand.
Do you know the irony of the word linguist being really hard to say?
Exactly, I know, right?
Hey, Matt, so you are in Romania right now?
I am, yeah. Really repping the internationals, International Podcast Day, yeah.
Yeah, good. So there, International Podcast Day. Brilliant to have you here. Just as I said there in the intro, we were chatting yesterday, weren't we? And the next thing you know, we're here. And this is how we roll, isn't it?
Yeah, every single time we get together.
And across this show, we've had lots of different topics spoken about, lots of different guests. Again, around the world, we've had people who've had rappers from Australia, we've had adventurers from the States, you name it, we've had them. If you are here, please let us know. We might do something a bit ad hoc, Marius, with any of our watchers. You might even pull a tarot card for them.
Yes, indeed.
Who knows?
I'll disappear a bit behind the scenes to bring all of my stuff since, I work with a lot of tools. So, I'm not opposed to that. I would love that.
You say disappear, but magic was your thing, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. I would say that I've been having a lot of conversations with people around me lately that I've always been kind of passionate about magic, but it's kind of hard to really put it into society and think of it it actually exists. But the more I kind of develop my practice, I realize this is legit magic that I'm doing. It's pretty on point with what I like to do ever since I was a kid. So.
Wonderful. Is that from a young age, Marius? How did that start?
Yeah, definitely. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just ever since my first ever interaction with magic that I can think of was Harry Potter, like most people, but ironically not the movies or the books. It was the video game, for Chamber of Secrets. And I just remember being like completely like wowed by it, like every single thing, like, oh my God, a school of magic. Like, I'll go to school. Like I was like 6 or something, like it was right before I would go to school. And like, but like they're going to magic school, like that's amazing. And like it was a rabbit hole that I fell down to, because I became obsessed with Harry Potter. Like, that was my, beginning, and not much has changed. Like, in 22 years, like I'm still very much obsessed with it, and I still love it as my entrance into magic. But I just got like more and more into it. Every time I'd play a role-playing game, I'd always pick the mage class. Every time I'd do like a D&D campaign, always the mage. If I were to consume any sort of like fantasy like media, mages everywhere. Like I just like the idea of like controlling the elements, and like making things happen, and like apparate and disapparate and teleportation. All of it just seemed wild to me. And I guess it was because like I thought that in real life you can't do any magic. So I was like, okay, this is really cool that like so many people have thought about this, and like there's media representing it, and it's escapism. But then like as I grew up, I learned more and more about spirituality, which is very much like tied to magic and things like that. And while it's not ever as you see in movies, or like as you read, it's very close to like you can definitely make unseen things happen with the tools that you use for your magic or spiritual practice.
I was just thinking about you there. As a 6-year-old, you must have had the cloak, Marius.
I did, and the wand, and the glasses, and everything, yeah.
Yes.
But ironically, like, obviously, like, I didn't have the discernment when I was young to be like, oh, yeah, I don't like Harry. Like, like, he was the main character and everything. But when I discovered, like, I think it was when Pottermore became, like, a big deal around, like, when I was 13 or something, I immediately was like, I don't want to be associated with Gryffindor. Like, I'm all Slytherin. So, yeah.
You're a wild man. Right, so the magic bit, and then what about tarot then? when did the spirituality kind of drop with you then?
It was pretty serendipitous, I'd say. And like everything's lined up in my life, like, everything's lined up very perfectly, like at all times. Tarot began like right as I got into uni. Like I came to the UK. To be fair, like I did have like some interactions with it beforehand. The first ever tarot deck that I saw and like had a reading done, it got stuck in my mind. Like I just couldn't erase the imagery. And I was a big skeptic. Like, let's get this straight out. Like it wasn't like, oh yeah, like I'm a huge magic kid as, like when I was young, and then like, I'm going to stick with this. Like I was definitely a victim of social conditioning. And I thought like, it's not real. It can't be real. Things like that. And I became like hugely skeptic about anything spirituality, like, astrology, religion, tarot, all of that stuff. But I couldn't explain the fact that I was still pulled to it. So when I had that interaction with that deck, the imagery got stuck in my head. And then I was playing a random video game like a year before I went to uni, and it had the words Major Arcana as the level design. Like every level was named after a major arcana. And I was like, where did I hear this before? Like, this sounds really cool. Like, what is this? And I eventually looked it up, and it was like, related to tarot. It's the 22 trump cards in tarot. And throughout that year, like, somehow I got into astrology as well through memes of all things, like, learning more about like, what a birth chart is and things like that. And when I realized that astrology and tarot are like entire systems, and there's something to learn about them, and they interconnect so well, it really spiraled. Like, honestly, I don't even know how I got to today. Like, it's been a wild ride, but like the more I learned, the more I figured that like, oh, this is so real. Like I can do so much with it. And yeah, I got my first tarot deck when I went to uni. Like it was October of 2019. I still remember. And now, 3 years later, I have, 4 tarot decks, 2 oracle ones, loads of crystals, incense, all that. I have an entire altar. Like it's all set up. That's why I said like, I'll just vanish behind the scenes, bring my stuff.
So you mentioned you were doing linguistics at university. Is that right?
Yeah, I just finished this year. I went to do English at Sunderland, it was the English degree, and I was really focused on creative writing. But then I got there, and after literally a semester of like doing linguistics, I fell in love with it and decided to change my major and go towards linguistics. And I still did creative writing, on the side.
And you're all done? Your studies are done?
Yeah. I'm currently taking a break, and I'm planning on doing my master's next year. But for the moment, yeah, I'm just focusing more on my spiritual development than my academic.
So from a business point of view, Marius, I know spirituality is kind of life for you, but also you want to blend that into business. So what does that look like?
To me specifically, it's the fact that, spirituality usually is very like divorced from business, like in the sense that I see a lot of like spiritual, before I would like, think of myself as a spiritual business, I'd see a lot of like, businesses that like didn't know how to advertise themselves, didn't know how to market themselves, didn't know how to like really translate into this world of business. And it was really sad because like when I would meet these people, I'd have like really good conversations with them. I'd find that like, they're worth like, interacting with and learning more about their practice, whether that's tarot or astrology or Reiki or shamanism or whatever. But every time I'd like, business nowadays equates to digital. Like you need to have some sort of digital presence to make an impact. And when I looked them up, I was just like so disappointed in the fact that like they didn't see themselves, they didn't recognize what a business was. So, if I saw that like spiritual and business were like completely two worlds apart, I thought that my mission would be to bring them together. That's what I usually do with like connecting the patterns. So I thought, might as well apply that to myself and put my money where my mouth is.
This is really interesting. When you're a bit younger, Marius, you're almost expected to toe a line to follow a path, and actually our friend Shumba there's just popped something in the comments there. It's all about what you feel drawn to. Now
exactly.
You obviously felt drawn to this, and what I love about that is you've leaned into it. You haven't kind of said no, I can't do that. It's a side thing, it's a hobby, it's an interest. Bringing the two, just as Shumba says there, you feel drawn to that. I love that you've actually followed your path.
Yeah.
And that is super authentic. And I know I often say this on the show, that's not a dirty word. It's just a bit overused by marketers, but it's so true. And it's when you're following that authentic path, you must feel so, I don't know, enthused by that you're kind of living and breathing your path.
Yeah, that's exactly how it feels. It's just, it's hard to get to that point because I think that like, with business specifically, there is this, like unspoken kind of like, path, like you were saying, that you should follow. And spirituality is completely like out of left field. And like, it started out as a hobby. Like, I learned how to do tarot like by myself. Like I'm 100% self-taught, same with astrology. And, it started as like, oh yeah, I want to explore my birth chart, but I want to do readings for me. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any sort of connection with my intuition. And if COVID did something good was when I was left alone for such a long time, like to kind of like reflect and stuff, I just, felt drawn to it. And I was like, I just want to learn more. And learning more, I got to a point where like I started to read for other people, my friends, my family, everything like that. And when the message kept popping up with like, you should charge for this, you should like turn this into a business, you should so-and-so. It took me like months to really listen to that and like put it into practice. But once I did, I found that like, every single time I have a reading, it's unique and I'm helping a person in some way or another, no matter the tools that I use. And it's just, it's a hard pill to swallow that like, oh yeah, no, you can do what you like and you can make a business out of it. You can make a life out of it. It's just, you do have to believe in yourself and in your authenticity. I think, yeah, like you said, like authenticity is overused, but it's true. Like you do have to come from an authentic place if you want to make something for yourself without sacrificing a part of yourself.
I'm smiling away here because I've said this to you before about this. You've been here before, right? Your wisdom just knocks me out, right? Because people don't think, this is mass generalization, quite often when Ian speaks to people, they don't speak like this, or they don't have this kind of penny drop moment until a bit later on in life where they actually can accept maybe spirituality or their feelings and actually lean into it without feeling a little bit of judgment or anything. But actually, you've just, as a young man, just decided, that's it. This is who I am. This is what I believe. I'm all out there. Because the people in your space, they've got to be a bit older, right? They've got to be that middle-aged and probably ladies as well, would you say?
In my industry, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's definitely oversaturated with feminine energy.
Okay.
Like I think that was one challenge. Like, when I decided I want to pursue a spiritual business, it's just the fact that like not a lot of guys know how to interpret all of this. And I'm not saying this to blame anyone. It's just when you observe a pattern, like you go to a tarot workshop or an astrology workshop and you're the only guy in the room, it makes you feel a certain way. And makes you like, it's really thought provoking. Like it makes you ask yourself, like, why aren't more like, men into this? Why it's such a cool thing. It doesn't need to be gendered. It's just about like, learning more about yourself and about other people as well. And yeah, it was a bit challenging, I guess, to like, make that decision. Like it didn't come overnight. Like, let's establish that. Like, I, on my personal side of things, like I've been in therapy for the last 2 years, and that kind of like really shifted my perspective on a lot of things, including my professional life. And yeah, I hear that a lot. And thank you for like, reminding me that like, everyone says like, you're so young and you've decided to do that like right now. And that's really good. I don't necessarily see myself as that young, like obviously in like physical body, but in age, I'm always like, oh yeah, like I've lived so many lifetimes and like, I have so much to prove and like, I got to learn my lesson and like, every single day is a new lesson. And I guess like, when I step out of that and just have a conversation with people, it's nice, to, receive appreciation for that. But for me, it's literally like, living my truth and like being authentic with what I want isn't something that like I can do like 10 years from now. I got to do it now, or like it's just not worth it.
Our Mark just says there, it gives us true freedom.
Exactly.
When we're living authentically like that, and that's exactly what you've just said there. And actually, there's our Shumba sort of saying that you should receive rewards, Marius. That you're meant to do this, and you truly are. Maybe some of our people who comment, you might pull a card for them later.
I would love to. I've actually started doing this recently, like as part of my practice.
Okay, have you?
I always like to say this, that I'm a developing tarot reader and astrologer. Like, I don't think that I can ever be like, the end all be all. Like I learned something new about tarot, astrology, crystals, any spiritual practice every day. And one thing that I've learned recently, it was like on this last new moon on the 25th, I believe. Yeah. I've started doing collective readings beforehand. Like, I'd appreciate and like admire, tarot readers who would be able to like read the collective energy, or astrologers who would be able to like interpret the planets. And it took a bit of like, building up my courage, but I just literally like, sat down with all my decks and was like, okay, like, what do they have to say? And interpreting the energy, like, I thought like, again, in social conditioning, I have to share this immediately and everything. And then it just hit me that like, you can have the message in front of you. You can like, interpret it for yourself and then bring it to the collective when it's meant to find them. Like, when you hold conversations with people about, the state of things recently and stuff. And I'm really excited to, keep exercising that. And I would love to do a collective reading later on.
Wonderful. Well, we've got lots of people commenting, so we'll pick a couple of lucky commenters out. There's our Noreen there saying that she was 48 when she kind of lent into what she loved. And I can totally relate to that as well. Maybe there's a little bit of judgment there, or maybe you have to keep this to yourself. Maybe people will, I don't know, judge you. But something you said there about, all your decks in front of you. What is it like, Marius, from an intuition point of view when you have messages or feelings? How do you differentiate between the things that come in your head and the messages that you receive? How does that work?
That is such a great question. Thank you for asking me that, because I feel like it took me so long to understand it. And like, I love talking about this because it's just like revelatory for everyone involved. First of all, I think that like everyone can be intuitive and everyone can do what I do, like intuition wise and like, doing readings and like interpreting signs. I just think it's a fact of like intuition, just like anything else. It's something that's intrinsic to us. It's within our body. It's, like a reaction. It's something, a vibe. It's something that we feel. I just think that like, people have different natural skills with it. Like for me, it is tarot and astrology, yes, because they're the way that I say languages of the universe. To me, it's just, as a linguist, again, it's just the fact that like it's a means of communication, whether it's visual with tarot or more mathematical maybe, and like, drawing patterns on the sky with astrology. But other people that I've met and like communicated with and even worked with, they have the gift of like, working with crystals and the oral energy that they bring. Some of them, again, Reiki, that kind of thing of like being able to pull energies out of someone from a distance, past life regressions, and like sound bowls, sound meditation and things like that. I think that all of these take intuition to work with and, something coming from within you. But that differentiation between like, the anxiety voice and the intuition voice, I think is simply over the fact that like, if you feel like you're doing something out of desperation or like, fear or something that isn't necessarily yours, it's more like planted into your brain, that's definitely anxiety. Intuition, I feel like, my sister puts it really well with intuition is that like, quiet voice that like just states something that thinks you should do. Anxiety is like, the yelling belligerent child that like will always yell and like will not leave you alone. And it's just about the fact that like it's quieting, and meditation has helped me a lot with just like kind of, okay, let's bring it back to our body. And usually this is, I find, universally valid. If you feel it here, or in your solar plexus, those are the 3 chakras that are like the most intuitive. So if you feel any sort of vibe regarding a situation in those 3, that's probably a sign from your intuition to, take action. Gut feeling.
Gut feel. You took the words out of my mouth. Gut feel. In business, in leadership, and everything, gut feeling. When you learn to listen to your gut, you really learn to make decisions from within.
Exactly.
And it's very rarely wrong, Marius. Very rarely wrong.
Yeah.
And it's probably from the dawn of time. You meet someone, you just get a good feeling, like something about that person, or something about this relationship, or something about this project that. But what happens is this thing in here goes, no, it's fine. And you try and change your mind, and you talk yourself out of stuff. Going with your gut is a great way to train.
Exactly. Yeah. I think like, the ego is the killer of like anything that your body intrinsically feels like,
Yeah.
I think that like I've learned that my intuition never lies. Like even if when I have a situation where I feel like, oh yeah, it's, steered me wrong or something, I usually get like maybe not instant gratification, but throughout the day or like, after a certain period of time, I find that, oh yeah, no, like I needed to make that mistake, or I needed to like, have that like failure, or I needed to go through that experience that my intuition led me into it, that I thought like, egoically speaking, like, oh yeah, no, that's not good for me. So I can learn a lesson. So it's within you, basically. Like that's all that it is about intuition. Like it's in the word, it's inside of you. So as long as like, you listen to it and you tap into it, you basically get to exercise like any other skill. I find it's the same as like, doing quick maths or, doing workouts and like exercising your muscles and things like that. It's just an unseen muscle, I guess. It's, more soulful.
It's really interesting you talk about instant gratification, because sometimes you listen to your gut, you make a decision, you feel that it's the right one, or something's proven to be the right one. You get a hit and you go, I feel good now, I've listened to my gut.
Yeah.
My ego then goes, yeah, no, but how do you know it's the right one? Because the only way you knew, if you took the other decision in an alternative universe, how do you know? It's
exactly
stop,
like
I've got like, stop it, Ian. It worked out well. It was the right thing to do. Oh, I've got another, let's have a look at this one here. It's good to see another male within the spiritual industry, as you said, Marius, that shouldn't be gender specific. Kyle Gray comes to mind. I am sure they are more learning to trust my gut as an ongoing process. Yeah, exactly what I've just said there. Let me know who that was actually, because I've just got a LinkedIn user. Yeah, exactly what our friends just said there. It's an ongoing process to learn to do that. And sometimes the ego is the enemy, as we say.
Yeah.
We'll try and talk yourself out of that. Okay, then. So, in terms of a really good point there about the industry and about males, what challenges have you faced, Marius, in this specific industry?
Stigma, more than anything.
Okay.
I think that like a big problem with the spiritual industry is that it's not really cohesive. It's not the same as like when you work in marketing or when you work in sales or any really industry that comes to mind. There's this sort of mutual understanding between like industry partners that what happens here happens with you as well, and people get to expect, like even if we're rivals, we're competitors, people know what to expect from the both of us. In the spiritual community, that happens at a personal level. Like, yeah, that's true. If you get like 3 or 4 famous spiritualists in a room, it's a lovely conversation, it's really good. But again, I think that like because it's something of an antiquated age, sort of like all of these practices come from a time before us, and they're not necessarily like, not all of them have been brought to the 21st century. And I love that new age spirituality is doing all of that. Like if it's doing one good thing, like, the TikTok revolution with astrology TikTok, or like everyone owning a tarot deck nowadays, I find that beautiful. Like, again, I think that everyone should have access to this information. Everyone should get to have their own practice. Everyone should be able to exercise their intuition. It's just the fact that like the stigma is still there. And when you try to talk about this in the same way that you would talk about any sort of industry, like, your work, it's this whole like underlying pressure, even if someone doesn't say it, that they look at you like you're crazy, essentially. And one thing that I like to do, and this might be a bit controversial, but I find that psychology and spirituality are so well rooted within each other and are so interconnected. And the fact that they've been disconnected from each other is a big issue, because psychology, when it properly began and kicked off in the 20th century, it was the same reaction. Like, it's just gotten a lot more destigmatized in the meantime. And now it's gotten to a point where like it's almost completely destigmatized. Spirituality, I think, is following in the same footsteps. And it's just the idea that like, were they to be a bit more melded together and they would help each other coexist, I think that like, this whole stigma around like being a spiritual business, being in the spiritual industry, talking about it as a valid means of like, obtaining clarity or like, reassurance or being able to like, understand yourself better, it wouldn't be as like seen as though you're a lunatic or like, even if you're a spiritualist or a follower of the whole thing with like, I don't believe in astrology, I don't believe in tarot. It's not about believing, it's about just wanting to understand it. It's no one's tying you to it in terms of like, it's not a religion. It's just a tool. It's literally like, something that you use to gain better understanding of what's surrounding you or what's going on inside you. No one's marrying you to it and no one's making you commit to something that you don't want to. So after this very long-winded answer, the biggest challenge I faced, I think, is stigma and fighting that stigma on all of its fronts.
You answered that extremely well, and I like what you were talking about there about the psychology side, and it made me think, sometimes, Marius, we're almost trained into not thinking or using our heads. I guess it's a bit like we'll be in a restaurant, okay? There's always background music, okay? It's stopping us thinking. It's stopping us taking time to actually be still in our thoughts. We're always kind of being stimulated or entertained in some reason. And you said these are kind of old skills that we've kind of maybe forgot. It's because we've got so much going on right now. And you said something earlier on about Reiki and singing bowls and stuff like that. I don't know if anyone's ever had a massive singing bowl or heard one. It's ridiculous. You've got to be anyone. You put your hand in, you can feel the vibrations, you can feel it inside. Those things are so tangible that you can't not kind of think, wow, that's super cool.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, it's the skeptical brain of like, I always blame social conditioning for this. Like, it's no one's fault that they're a skeptic. Like, even when I meet people that like, like, oh yeah, you believe in that stuff. Or like, I don't even entertain the conversation of like, oh no, I have a business over that stuff. I don't blame them for like being skeptics. I think that no one is born a skeptic, just like as no one is born with preconceived ideas about race or gender or like, sexuality and things like that. It's the same with like, spiritual beliefs. And being a skeptic myself, coming from a point of huge skepticism, I empathize with them and I have a lot of compassion. And I think that, it's literally just a matter of social reconditioning and just destigmatizing one day at a time and allowing people to have that experience, at the end of the day, even if they are a skeptic. Like, I've seen people that like, ever since I've gotten into astrology, I've explained a few concepts to them about their birth chart or the planets and things like that. And as long as like you have the respect to like explain that to them when they're open, not like shoving it down their throats, but like, you have to believe this, you have to understand this whenever it feels comfortable for me, it changes something in them. And I think that if you understand one practice, you start to be more curious at the very least about others. And then you kind of find the one that you vibe with the most. And like you said, I went to sound bowls like almost a year ago for the first time. I didn't even know I was going. Like, it was this experience, like, workshop, a spiritual one. And then like at the end, they were like, oh yeah, we also have sound bowls if you want to try them. And I was like, I mean, sure, I love trying new experiences. And it was amazing, but I didn't even know how they worked. And I was like, how can, the skeptic in me, how can sound vibration heal you like in your body? But it did. So, it's all about like empathizing with the skeptic rather than shunning the skeptic.
Don't get me talking about sound, Marius, and the fact that the Egyptians moved stones with sound. That's another thing altogether.
I know, their vibrations and, like listening to music, that heals you on the inside. Why wouldn't, sound bowls be able to, or like, why wouldn't the Egyptians be able to move things with sound? Like, of course.
Yep, and there's Suki, she's got a gong bowl. These things are so, you can't get away from it, And you said something wonderful there about allowing yourself to experience stuff. I love that, Marius, because when you open up to experiences that are so safe, like Reiki, you lie down and someone lays hands on you. Well, actually doesn't lay hands in from a distance, or they may lay hands actually. I've been Reiki attuned as well. It's 45 minutes of your time. And if it's not for you, then it's not for you. But you can't then say that was rubbish. Have you tried it? No. Then you know?
Exactly. That's exactly everything that I say. It's like I hear people like, bashing things that they've never tried. And the only question that I bring up is like, have you actually tried it? Or like, are you living from someone else's experience? Because again, that's not something like, uncommon. Like, I feel that like it's so easy to have a loud voice nowadays about like a certain thing. And, it can even be Google reviews. It can be anything. Like if an idea is planted in your brain, it's really hard to get it out. And that's why I like always phrase it in allow yourself to have that experience. Like skepticism aside, just go there, try it. At the end of the day, yeah, you're like, what is it costing you? 45 minutes of your time. See if you like it. If not, that's fine. You learn something new about yourself. I don't like that, but I don't like that. Not so and so telling me that I won't like that.
Yeah. Mark says something interesting there about our connection to everything around. Few words there sprang in my mind because I don't know about you, Marius, but if I go out into nature, I walk, I feel so much better. I feel so much better. I love plants. I've got lots of plants around the house. We are connected. You can't get away from it. And if I go on holiday, I'm getting on my soapbox here, but I'll have a bit of a rant. If I go on holiday like India, I'll be walking along the beach and I'll have no socks and shoes on. I'm grounded. My feet are on the soles of the earth and the soles of my feet are together. And people come back and say, I've had a week in Spain or whatever. I feel so much better. When do you ever take your socks and shoes off and walk around? Never. But you do when you're on holiday and you come back and you feel great. Yes, I get you being rested and recharged, but you've done things like being, connected to the earth. And yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that up since I try to do that as often as I can. Like, just going into nature and taking my shoes and socks off and like just being grounded. Yeah. Because it helps massively. Like it's, I think like, over the fact that like you connect with an element, like it's earth and like, you're touching it instead of like, having a barrier to it. And as long as you do it safely and like, an environment that you feel peaceful, like for me, nature walks are some of the best de-stressors that I've ever tried. And it's so easy. You literally just, walk in nature. Like you don't have to do anything else. And it's beautiful because like, it's very dependent on like, not dependent necessarily, but it's enhanced by, weather conditions. Like if it's rained and it's a bit more muddy, or like if it's sunny and it's like, you're kind of like experiencing it, like, with the sun's rays and things like that. No matter what happens, like it's something that is so easy. And I love that you brought up that example because it's just, it's things like that, like that really help you stay grounded, feel better. And the answer is always a lot simpler than we think. But again, like it's something that's worth talking about because we're bringing it back to the basics and we're bringing back these like, simpler ways of like dealing with stuff and like healing ourselves rather than having to, think of like, oh yeah, no, my journey to healing and like understanding myself is going to be tough and I can't do anything about it. Like that's how things have to be. I always say this in my practice, like I've learned this from another spiritualist. It has to be like, it should be like this or shouldn't be like this. It just is like, make the best out of it and, allow yourself to be in that moment again, because no one says that it should be in any way. Like there's no preordained, way of doing things.
It's really interesting. Our Myra there's sort of mentioned there about nature being a natural healer, and you mentioned the sun, Marius, and again something that I'm really strongly believing in. I think the sun's had a bit of a bad rap, and we're talking about cancer and that's sun damage and stuff. Yeah, I totally understand that, but actually, if it's a sunny day, this is going to sound mad, right? But I love sort of shirt off if I'm in the garden and letting the sun hit my body. And actually, if you think about, we weren't maybe meant to wear clothes. And when was the last time, this is going to sound mad, when was the last time your butt received some sun rays, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Probably never, okay? Because we always have to wear clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, how wonderful would it be for your body, your naked body, to feel the sun's rays on you and almost re-energize? And it might not be in the height of the sun because it could be dangerous and you could burn. But the sun's so powerful as well, Marius, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Like, and that's also like, very connected to your Leo side because it's to enter into some astrology theory because you are represented by the sun, like, that is your ruling planet. And I find that like, but I totally get that. It's about the fact that like, it's the warm rays and like the idea that like, being in nature connected to a light source, a natural light source, rather than, like being at your computer all day. And like, it's just, I always feel better if I've spent the entire day in the house, and then if it's still a bit sunny out, like, I love walking at sunset. Like, I think that's just, It's an incredible experience because it's not that warm out, but you can still have patches of sun, and it can still be like that sort of experience. It's something natural that helps out so much with just being able to view it, being able for it to allowing yourself to have an impact on you, and just appreciating it for what it is, because it's natural light. Nothing can top natural light in terms of lighting you up and re-energizing you, like you were saying.
Yeah, we could go on all day, but I'm going to have to drag you back about this business, because I want to talk about, you mentioned marketing before, and you said about sales, and actually there is a stigma with sales, mate, I tell you.
It is, yeah.
but with marketing as well, how do you find that, from a business point of view, Marius?
I'll try my best not to go off on a huge tangent here, because I'm really passionate about marketing. I've worked in it for the past couple of years while I was in university. And to me, I think that I might be biased again, but marketing is content. It is about creating a personal brand. It is about talking about something that you're really passionate about, writing about it, videoing about it, doing anything about it that is congruent, and it helps you to create your business, power it up, and just light it up and have it be as accessible to as many people as possible. The only problem that I find with marketing for spirituality is that marketing, unfortunately, in its very nature, is thought of as disingenuous. When people hear about it, it's oh yeah, you're marketing to me, you're being salesy, you're trying to push this thing onto me. And by nature, I find that spirituality isn't something that needs to be pushed onto you. It's something that I think that marketing can definitely be used to heighten the access to it, and make it so when you Google something say easy tarot readings, or intuitive tarot readings or whatever, if you do SEO for that, and if you have really good content about that, and if you have a digital presence, and again, that's a personal frustration, but if you edit your site in such a way that it's visually pleasant, because a lot of spiritual businesses suffer from this. They don't really consider the visual aesthetics of their content. If you do all of this, I think it's just adding to the conversation. You're becoming a legitimate business. And I think that's the bridge between how this, spirituality and business are just completely divorced. Marketing is kind of that bridge of marketing is the means for you to, grab the mic and be right, this is what I want to say about myself. And a lot of businesses choose not to do that. And for me, it's extremely important to do that and to take power of the narrative and really say, here's my business, here's what I do, here's why I do it, here are the tools that I use in order to do that. It didn't happen overnight. Here's my story. All of these things are a lot simpler when you put them down on paper. But I think that it's not usually brought up in spirituality because reasons. It's just, oh yeah, you're going to the witch down the well, or something like that. It's still that kind of mentality, And what I like to do in this, kind of revolutionary, new age spirituality thing is bring marketing into it, bring it as an important part of the discussion, but not pollute, spirituality with it, as it were.
Yeah. Well, that must be really difficult to get that balance, because, in marketing, as you say, you're almost, I don't want to say selling yourself, but it's kind of helping people to buy. You're highlighting what you do. Hopefully people will relate to that and then want to work with you. And Shumba put something in the comments, actually, it's quite a long one, but she did say something about a few years ago. She put a lid on a love, trust on tarot, intuition, Reiki, mediumship, and hypnotherapy and sound therapy, because she wanted to kind of fit in and be the norm.
I really empathize with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but now she's kind of realized that you're shutting herself off and things like that. So you, from a marketing point of view, you want to kind of highlight to people like Shumba, you don't need to shut yourself off. You don't need to kind of fit in and be the norm. How do you balance that though, Marius, without kind of being that kind of quirky person that beats the drum and is a bit almost inauthentic?
Yeah, I get what you mean. So I've had this rebranding idea during the summer, right after I was done with uni. I thought I haven't updated my Instagram bio in a while. And I was I need something that representative of me at this point. And I describe myself as a type A hippie in the sense that yeah, I'm very frolicky and fairy-like. And, I go walking barefoot in nature and things like that. And I have tarot cards and crystals and incense and all of that witchy stuff, but I'm extremely type A. When it comes down to business, I always have an itemized list. I have a schedule. I have meetings booked in. I have everything. I will have a PA, and God bless her, I will pay for her therapy, because I know I am that type of type A with even if we're talking spirituality, no matter what we're talking about, I have high expectations and I like things done in a certain way. But it's this whole thing of I take myself seriously, I think, more than anything. No matter, and again, this doesn't only apply to my spiritual side, it applies to all of my sides. But as a spiritualist, I think that, well, at least I try to be living proof that you can be both, indeed. You can be extremely attuned to nature and to all of these tools that you use, and to your spirituality and to all of these beliefs. But that doesn't mean that you gotta be a leaf drifting in the wind, to use a spiritual metaphor, as it were.
Yeah.
You can be someone that's very you enter a room, you have power, people know how to deal with you. And even no matter what you're selling or providing, you are a steadfast human being that deserves respect. That's kind of how I would describe it, this whole maintaining the balance, honoring both my type A tendencies and my hippie tendencies, and marrying them together so that they make me who I am.
Wonderful. I love that. If anyone's watching, I hope you don't mind this, Marius, I'm going to go off piste a little bit here. If anyone's watching, and you might want to pop in the comments, tarot, Marius might pull you a card. Is that okay, Marius?
Yeah, sure.
Marius, just while we're waiting for anybody that might want to pull a card, or you might pull one for me, tell me a little bit about what would tarot do for people? How could it maybe help someone's journey, therapeutic journey?
Really glad you asked me that, because again, I gotta put my money where my mouth is in explaining this whole psychology and spirituality. I always bring it back to Jung. He was an astrologer as well. He was a tarot reader. He was all of the things that spirituality is for, and he still he was one of the two fathers of psychology. And I think that to me, the fact that tarot is a lot based on archetypal energy, it's based on elemental energy. It's really the end all be all. You got to use a lot of at least in my practice, that's what I found. You have to be aware of spiritual correspondences in terms of astrology. Every tarot card has an astrological correspondent. The numerology of the cards means a lot. The fact that the devil is the 15th card, that means something in numerological presentations. The world is the final card, the fool is the first one, it's 0 rather than 1, things like that. All of these little details mean something in terms of tarot. So in terms of psychology and how that helps you on our therapeutic journey, since you're obviously dealing with the subconscious, I also deal with the subconscious when it comes to my readings and things like that. I would never classify myself as a therapist or a consultant or things like that. I truly believe that you do need to have proper schooling and preparation and to learn how to do this properly through university. But I think that, again, I would love to work with a therapist, and I'm currently doing that now with my former therapist in terms of utilizing the spiritual aspects of her business and bringing them forward, because again, it's really important to go back to what Jung was doing. He was incredibly authentic with the fact that he was both a spiritualist and a psychologist. And I think that were you to marry them together and not invalidate the other, because I think that's what a lot of people want to do. It's oh yeah, but if you go to a tarot reader, you can't go to a psychologist. No, you can. You absolutely can. It doesn't have any sort of overlap in terms of clashing together. It's just different information that you receive, and you choose what you do with it. And this is a perfect segue into my way of reading tarot, because I always tell people it's not divination. It's not, I will tell you what will happen 100%, by no means. I think that everyone has free will, and tarot and astrology, all of these things are just means of you to interpret what might come, the energies that you're dealing with, things being able to check the weather before you go out of the house and choosing whether you want to bring an umbrella with you or not. It's your choice, you have free will, and nothing will happen without your consent.
I'm really pleased you said that. A lady who I see, a therapist, she is incredibly spiritual as well. I wish she was here, but she's on holiday actually. When them two merge together, it makes for just a fantastic session. It really, really does. So that's a really good point, Marius. So we have a few people in the comments. Actually, I'm going to go to the... Actually, let's pick our Misha.
Right.
Okay. If she wants to jump in, she's in the other room. She can jump in if she wants. Suki, before we do that, Suki has said, I've never had it done before. Interested in what it's like. Now, Suki, are you asking for a reading here? Or are you saying, I've never had it done before? Are people scared, Marius, about this?
Always, literally.
Do they think it's got some negative kind of witchy, scary connotations or spirit, like evil spirits on?
So many.
Okay.
So many people that I've talked to have either told me that, like, this is a prerequisite question. I always ask, have you ever had tarot done before? And everyone's that's had it done unprofessionally tells me that, like, oh yeah, no, because like it's the devil's work and like something bad happened because I extracted that card. But they don't understand it because, again, like they were not explained it properly. And it's this whole thing of like, like, oh, if you have a tarot deck, like, it's cursed, it's possessed, it's literally a tool. Yeah, I cleanse them with sage and Palo Santo and things like that from time to time because they attract energy. Like the more you use them, either for yourself or for other people, they retain some sort of energy. But that's with everything. Like, it's with you, it's with crystals you wear, it's with like, tools you use for your practice, like, astro dice and bowls and things like that. They're palpable objects that retain energy. There's nothing demonic about them. There's nothing like, like the devil's work. It's none of that stuff. It's just energy translated into illustrated cards.
It looks like Suki has totally trusted you because she said yes. But we've got a special guest here.
Hello.
I know you're a friend of Marius's as well, aren't you? So Marius, are you gonna do a card for Misha?
Of course, yeah. So the way I usually tell people that this works so that it reassures them is you think of a situation that you want some clarity upon, and then I extract a few cards. In this case, since we're pressed on time and I want to get through as many of you as possible, I will extract one card for a bit of clarity. So Misha, we have the Ace of Wands here. You're really open-minded lately, I think, for like, new ideas and new projects. Like you're really burning up with passion. With the Ace, it's this whole thing of like, like initial energy. So I don't remember, were you a fire sign by any chance?
Yeah.
You're really tapping into your fire sign energy and just like authenticity. Like we were talking about authenticity, like this is, picking up on the collective energy. I think really committing to saying yes lately rather than no, and just being a lot more lenient with the energy around you, and not as, I think you've gone through a period of like, setting hard boundaries, and now you're really into like, okay, let's open up. Let's see what I can bring to me. Like if I say yes and like be like, yeah, I'm holding the torch, I can be like, the first one to say yes. Let's see where this goes. So a lot of open-mindedness on your part.
Yeah, definitely. I think you would agree as well.
Yeah, I've put a lot of pressure on her to do that as well. So yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Ian, do you want one?
Go on then.
Okay.
Special guest there. That was a bit different, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like, and I'm really happy with her card, and it, the energy, like she was radiating with fire, and I'm really happy to see it. For you, it's the Daughter of Swords. So this is related to the astrological season we're currently in, Libra season and Mercury retrograde. I think you've really reconnected with your inner innocence throughout this past 3 weeks with like the Mercury retrograde. Usually when Swords is air energy, so it might be calling out any air placements in your birth chart. It's that thing of like, kind of, I'm hearing a lot of innocence. It's about like, reconnecting to your innocent part. Again, picking up on the collective energy, because I think we've kept talking about like, psychology and like nature walks and things like that. This is feeling very like inner child healing. So I think that like, you're really pro that, and like really connecting with that side of yourself in a very like innocent and unbothersome way. Like you're really taking your steps in a gentle and very like respectful pattern for your inner child.
That's really interesting. I spoke to someone last week about that, about inner child, and I hadn't actually heard or really thought about that until recently. So that's quite interesting you've said that. Right, and who should we have? Myra, Tarot Marius, please.
Sure, yeah. Let's see what we can interpret for you, Myra. Okay, we have the Three of Wands reversed, and the Ace of Cups just dropped on the floor. So it definitely wanted to give you the double message. Essentially, when a card is reversed, it means that the situation that you're dealing with is more internal rather than external. So it's not something bad necessarily. It's more that the Three of Wands has this energy of like visualization towards the future. So it might be the fact that like you're a bit clouded in your visualization right now. You're not necessarily thinking of like, the future. You're more focused on the present moment. And the card that like really wanted to pop out, and this one popped out upright, the Ace of Cups, that's a good message for you, because living right now in the present, it's about feeling your emotions and being very prosperous in your beginnings. Like Misha got the Ace of Wands, you got the Ace of Cups. If wands are about like mental energy, cups are about heart energy, emotions, and being present in the moment helps you feel those feelings. And the wands, like it's this whole conflict of like, fire, water. By honoring the water in you, the water energy, like feeling the feelings that come up and being present and loving yourself for it, allows you to see a clearer vision of the future. Like you're not meant to worry about the future right now. It's more about like being present in the moment.
Mira is very present in the moment, and she does very, very lean into her feelings and spirituality. She does some great content, actually, so you might want to follow her, Marius. We've got a couple more, but before we do it, we'll do Shumba, who actually pulled some cards. I don't know if you can do anything with that or do one for her.
Oh yeah, no, we can interpret her cards if she'd like that. So she picked up the Eight of Swords, the Hermit, and the Two of Swords. So I think you must have done a past, present, future spread. And it's really interesting that you have the Hermit in between the two swords. The Hermit is the major arcana that is most often associated with Virgo. So Shamba, I don't know if you are a Virgo or if you have Virgo in your chart, or if you have some Virgo energy around you lately. Thing is, it's again very Mercury in retrograde, because Mercury is the planet of Virgo. It was retrograde in Libra and it came back into Virgo, and it's ending tomorrow finally. And it's about the fact that I think you faced a bit of anxiety surrounding you in this period of time, like, kind of feeling stuck in your mind, heart, brain, all of that stuff. It's usually like, again, swords have to deal with the mind sphere. So it could be like, the anxiety of like, am I not doing enough? Am I stagnating? The Hermit was the lesson of like, like, it's fine. I can hermit in this period. I can recollect. I can go in and just be with myself, so I can like learn as much as I can. And the Two of Swords being like much downer, like kind of subsided energy in the Swords suite is about the fact that like you've taken it down a few notches and you're ready to have that conflict that you are feeling in terms of, oh yeah, I don't feel like I'm enough, or like I'm not doing enough in this period. You can take it to the outside and be a bit more, I want to say conflictual, but not in the sense of like, vindictive. It's more like, I'm here to stand my ground. And that was only possible because you've done the hermiting, because you've learned the lesson of taking your time, acknowledging information, and sitting with it in a respectful way to yourself.
Shumba, you're a lucky lady. You've got a big reading there. We're going to go on to Suki, because Suki was a bit nervous, and now she's saying, "Have you got me one yet, Ian?" Before we do that, though, what about you, Marius? So, we chatted yesterday actually about, you really love. You've got 4 decks, and you kind of really love the illustrations of them. Tell me a little bit about the decks and why you like them, and what maybe pops out for you. Maybe what's what card you connect with the most.
Right. Yeah. So my first ever deck that I'm the most proud of, like this was the one that I was imprinted on when I saw it when I was 17, is the Wild Unknown Tarot by Kim Kranz. So this one is the one I extracted for you. I extracted the Suki's cards, and we're going to get to them in a moment, but just to show the imagery, this is how it looks. It's very like kind of nature-y, darky sort of aesthetic. And I love that. Like I think that it's a deck that has no humans in it at all. It's just animals or natural events. So kind of tied to what we were talking about with like reconnecting with nature and being in nature. I think I was drawn to it the most because it's this whole idea of the deck that it's a very harsh deck. Like it doesn't sugarcoat anything. And the card that is my favorite, it's a toss-up between two, but the one that like was most imprinted onto me because I had to listen to it because it kept showing up in a very aggressive way, was the High Priestess, which is the card of intuition. It's the connection with the moon, the mother sort of thing. It's motherly figures. And in the High Priestess, you find your intuition. It's about like listening to that inner feeling, the gut feeling. it has these ties to like, the motherly energy, like the feminine intuition sort of thing, like your mother just knowing that something is going on, just knowing that you're feeling bad, just knowing. And that card kept popping up for an entire year until I finally learned how to do intuitive readings by just trusting my gut rather than like always obsessively checking the like guidebook or like, online. So that's one. And then the other one is the Hangman, because that one is about staying in the present moment, not necessarily, it's by choice, but it's not by egoic choice. It's about like intuitive choice. It's being trapped in a situation so you can observe all of its outcomes and learn from it, and then you can take action when the time comes. For now, you are choosing to be in the hanged position so you can like be inactive and just an observant. And I've loved them so much that I've tattooed both of them on me. It's that kind of connection with them. It's their concepts that existed in me for so long. And then when I finally learned about tarot and put a name to them, put an image to them, I relate to them so much.
If anyone wants to see Marius's tattoos, if you just put in the comments strip, and we'll see what we can do. Actually, Marius, when you're talking about there, the cards keep coming to you. Let's just say you had 4 people in the room, and you did the cards for each person. If a card kept coming for the same person, for each one of those people, was that meant for you?
It could be. I think it's about the collective energy, and that's why it's really important to cleanse your cards and things like that.
Okay.
The cards pick up on like, collective energy, and it has happened to me before where I've done readings for 2 or 3 people in a row, and the same cards would pop up. And granted, they would be friends, but it's this whole thing of like, if you spend too much time with a person and you don't clear your space, you don't create a sacred space beforehand, it can be something that's a message meant for me. Like, it's the cards warning me like, hey, do the maintenance work, clean us, cleanse us, spend time with us alone, like, honor us on the altar, things like that. Because if I just like, use them ruthlessly without respect for them, the message just becomes like very, very clogged. It's hard to explain, but like, It's as if like every single deck has a personality of its own. And again, the Wild Unknown is the most fickle one of them, I would say. Like it's the first one, it's the most like, kind of favorite child energy. And to segue into that, like it has a message for Suki. And again, 2 cards were extracted, the ones that I showed previously. It's the 2 of Pentacles and the Daughter of Wands reversed. So it's about like, again, talking about the inner child work and stuff. It's really honoring like your inner world in terms of like your desires and passions. I'm hearing that you're balancing a lot on your shoulders right now, like, finance and love life and like something about a child, or you're balancing a lot of things basically. And that doesn't leave you a lot of room for your inner needs. And that's why the Daughter of Wands is reversed. It's an